Millionaire CEO rejects rich women and falls in love with a poor food delivery girl. Imagine this: a billionaire CEO, polished and powerful, surrounded by glamour and wealth, turns his back on everything he knows. He rejects the glittering world of elite parties, high-end fashion, and women vying for his attention, all because of one unexpected person. A girl who delivers food for a living. A girl with nothing but her dreams, her courage, and a recipe passed down from her grandmother. Sounds like something out of a movie, right? But trust me, this isn't just another fairy tale. It's a story about love, ambition, and breaking free from societal expectations. And it all starts with a single plate of yakisoba. Let's rewind to where it all began. Richard Stone, the man everyone wants to know, is exactly what you'd picture when you hear millionaire CEO. Handsome, confident, and commanding, he seems untouchable. His life revolves around business meetings, luxury cars, and exclusive events attended by people who think they're just as extraordinary as he is. Among them is Miranda, a socialite who's made it her mission to win Richard over. She's beautiful, wealthy, and determined, but Richard doesn't seem interested. Not in her, not in any of them. There's something missing in his life, though he can't quite put his finger on it. That is, until fate steps in and changes everything. Enter Layla, or Lila as she prefers to be called. She's 24 years old, works long hours delivering meals across the city, and dreams of opening her own restaurant someday. Life hasn't been easy for her. Her parents passed away when she was young, leaving her to fend for herself alongside her aging grandmother. Despite the struggles, Lila has an unshakable spirit. She finds joy in cooking, pouring her heart into every dish she prepares. On the night that changes her life forever, she's rushing through heavy rain to deliver an order to an upscale hotel, hosting a private party. Little does she know, she's about to crash into someone else's world. Literally, this moment. Things go sideways happens so fast. It almost feels surreal. Lila trips on the marble floor of the hotel lobby, sending plates flying everywhere. Chaos erupts as guests scramble to avoid the mess. But amidst the commotion, one man stays calm. Richard Stone watches silently as the clumsy delivery girl apologizes, profusely, her face flushed with embarrassment. Most people would have dismissed her instantly, but not Richard. Something about her catches his eye. Not just her awkwardness, but the sincerity in her voice and the faint aroma of spices clinging to her clothes. Curiosity gets the better of him, and before the night ends, he tastes the dish she delivered. One bite of her grandmother's secret recipe yakisoba, and Richard knows he's stumbled upon something extraordinary. What happens next defies logic, and maybe even common sense. Instead of forgetting about the incident, Richard tracks Lila down. He offers her a job as his personal chef, promising her a chance to showcase her talent to the world. At first, Lila thinks it's a joke. Why would someone like him care about someone like her? But Richard insists, and eventually she agrees, stepping into a world she never imagined she'd belong to. From bustling kitchens to boardroom dinners, Lila quickly learns that working for a billionaire isn't as glamorous as it sounds. The pressure is relentless, the stakes are high, and there's no shortage of people waiting for her to fail. Especially Miranda, who sees Lila as more than just competition. She sees her as a threat. As the days turn into weeks, an undeniable connection begins to form between Lila and Richard. They come from completely different worlds, yet they share a surprising bond. Richard admires Lila's authenticity, her refusal to play games or pretend to be someone she's not. Lila, on the other hand, starts seeing past Richard's polished exterior to the man underneath. a man burdened by responsibility, but yearning for something real. Their relationship evolves slowly, built on late-night conversations, shared laughter, and moments of vulnerability neither expected to find in each other, but as much as they try to keep things professional, the line between boss and employee blurs more with each passing day. Of course, nothing worth having ever comes easy. Just when it seems like Lila might finally catch a break, disaster strikes. Someone sabotages her work, spreading rumors about unsanitary practices in the kitchen. Overnight, her reputation is tarnished, and Richard faces backlash from his peers for trusting her. Meanwhile, Miranda seizes the opportunity to drive a wedge between them, using every trick in the book to make sure Lila loses everything, including Richard. Torn between defending herself and protecting her dream, Lila must decide how far she's willing to go to prove her innocence. And Richard, he's forced to confront his own fears and insecurities, asking himself if he's ready to stand by her side, no matter the cost. But here's the thing about stories like this. They always leave you hanging at the most crucial moments. Will Lila uncover the truth behind the sabotage before it's too late? Can Richard overcome the pressures of his elite world to fight for the woman he loves? Or will Miranda succeed in tearing them apart, leaving both of them broken and alone? As tensions rise and secrets unravel, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just a story about a rich man falling for a poor girl. It's a story about finding yourself, standing up for what you believe in, and daring to rewrite the rules of the game. So, what do you think will happen next? Stick around, because we're just getting started. In the next part of this series, we'll dive deeper into the twists and turns that test Lila and Richard's resolve, and reveal whether their love is strong enough to survive the storm. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated on this roller coaster ride of romance, drama, and unexpected surprises. See you soon! As the days turned into weeks, Layla found herself caught in a whirlwind she never imagined. Working for Richard wasn't just about cooking anymore. It was navigating a world where every move felt like walking on thin ice. The staff at Stone Enterprises whispered behind her back, some curious, others outright hostile. "She's just a delivery girl," one of them muttered, loud enough for her to hear. "How did she end up here?" Another sneered, "Probably sleeping her way to the top." Layla clenched her fists, but kept moving forward. She knew better than to let their words get under her skin. Still, it stung. Every day she reminded herself why she was doing this. For her grandmother, for her dream of opening her own restaurant, and maybe, just maybe, because there was something about Richard that made her want to stay. Richard, on the other hand, was dealing with his own battles. Paul had been relentless since the moment Lila stepped into his life. "You're risking everything for someone who doesn't belong here," Paul warned during one of their heated arguments. Richard shot him a cold glare. "She belongs wherever I say she does." But deep down, even Richard couldn't deny the tension brewing around them. His board members were questioning his decisions. Investors were growing uneasy, and Miranda hadn't stopped plotting against them. She'd been biding her time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, and when she finally did, it would shake both Richard and Layla to their core. The first major blow came unexpectedly. One evening, as Layla prepared dinner for a group of Richard's business associates, a health inspector walked in unannounced. He moved through the kitchen with an air of authority, inspecting every corner, taking notes, and snapping photos. By the end of his visit, he handed Richard a document declaring Sabre Delilah temporarily shut down due to alleged sanitation violations. Layla stared at the paper in disbelief. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We've always passed inspections without a hitch." Richard read the report carefully, his jaw tightening. "This isn't random," he said darkly. "Someone set us up, and they both knew exactly who that someone was." Miranda's involvement became crystal clear when Samuel, the private investigator Richard hired, uncovered evidence linking her to bribes paid to corrupt officials. It wasn't just sabotage, it was a full-blown war, but Miranda didn't stop there. Within hours, headlines broke across social media and news outlets claiming Sabre Delilah was closing permanently. Customers panicked, employees worried about their jobs, and Layla felt the weight of the world crashing down on her shoulders. For the first time since starting this journey, she doubted whether she could keep going. But doubt wasn't an option. Not if she wanted to protect what she'd built. With Richard by her side, Layla devised a plan to fight back. They couldn't reopen the restaurant immediately, but they could still serve their customers. Using social media as their weapon, they announced a special delivery service. "Sabre Delilah may be closed, but our food still comes to you." The response was overwhelming. Orders poured in faster than they could handle, and soon the entire team was working non-stop to fulfill them. It was chaotic, exhausting, and far from ideal, but it worked. People rallied behind Layla and Richard, flooding comment sections with messages of support. Even amidst the chaos, Layla couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could weather this storm together. Meanwhile, Miranda grew desperate. Her attempts to discredit Layla weren't having the desired effect, so she escalated her game. One of the restaurant's own employees, a young man named Carlos, was caught red-handed leaking information to her. When confronted, he confessed, under pressure, revealing Miranda's plan to expose any cracks in their operation. "She said if we made things difficult enough, you'd give up," Carlos admitted, his voice shaking. Richard dismissed him on the spot, but the betrayal left a bitter taste in everyone's mouths. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. Despite these challenges, Layla refused to back down. If anything, the attacks only fueled her determination. Late one night, as she sat in the dimly lit kitchen, surrounded by empty takeout containers and scattered receipts, Richard walked in. He looked at her silently for a moment before speaking. "You don't have to do all of this alone, you know." Layla sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I'm not alone. I have you, my team, my grandmother." Her voice trailed off. "But sometimes it feels like no matter how hard I try, there's always someone trying to tear me down." Richard pulled up a chair beside her, his expression softening. "Let them try. We'll tear them down first." There was a fierceness in his tone that sent shivers down her spine. And for the first time, Layla realized how much Richard truly believed in her, not just as a cook, but as a person. That realization scared her more than anything else, because the closer they got, the harder it became to ignore the feelings bubbling beneath the surface. Their relationship shifted subtly. After that night, conversations lingered longer, glances held deeper meaning, and moments shared between them carried an unspoken understanding. Yet neither dared to cross the line. Not yet. Not while the world seemed determined to pull them apart. Then came the turning point. A new article surfaced, exposing Miranda's schemes, complete with screenshots of incriminating messages and bank transfers. It was damning evidence, leaving no room for denial. Public opinion swung wildly in favor of Layla and Richard, forcing Miranda to retreat into obscurity. With the truth out, the regulatory agency lifted the closure order, allowing Sabre Delilah to reopen its doors. but the victory was bittersweet. The damage had already been done, and rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight. On the night of the reopening, the restaurant buzzed with energy. Customers lined up outside, eager to return to the place that had captured their hearts. Inside, Layla commanded the kitchen with quiet confidence, her passion shining brighter than ever. Richard watched from a distance, marveling at the woman who had changed his life in ways he never thought possible. As the evening wound down, he approached her cautiously. "Layla," he began, his voice steady, but tinged with vulnerability. "There's something I need to tell you." Her heart skipped a beat. Whatever came next, she knew it would change everything, for better or worse. As the night of the restaurant's reopening unfolded, Lila and Richard found themselves caught in a whirlwind they hadn't anticipated. The media frenzy surrounding their relationship had reached a fever pitch, with headlines blaring everywhere they looked. "Billionaire CEO chooses love over luxury," one article screamed, while another speculated about how long this unlikely romance would last. For Lila, it was overwhelming. She wasn't used to being under such intense scrutiny. Every step she took felt like walking on eggshells, every word overheard carrying the weight of judgment. But Richard stood by her side, unwavering, his calm demeanor acting as an anchor when the world seemed determined to pull her under. The turning point came during an interview neither of them had planned for. A journalist cornered them after spotting them leaving the restaurant together. Cameras flashed, microphones were shoved into their faces, and questions flew at them like arrows. "Are you two officially a couple?" one reporter demanded. Before Lila could stammer out a response, Richard stepped forward, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Yes," he said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We are." The confession sent shockwaves, not just through the crowd, but within Lila herself. She stared up at him, her heart pounding, unsure whether to feel terrified or elated. All she knew was that Richard's words carried a conviction she couldn't ignore. But the challenges didn't stop there. Miranda, enraged by the public declaration of Richard and Lila's relationship, decided to strike one final blow. Using her connections, she leaked false allegations against Sabre Delilah, claiming the restaurant violated health codes again. This time, however, she went further. She accused Lila of stealing recipes from other chefs, tarnishing not only the restaurant's reputation, but also Lila's integrity. It was a low blow, designed to destroy everything Lila had worked so hard to build. When the news broke, Lila crumbled. Sitting alone in the kitchen, surrounded by dishes, she no longer had the energy to cook. She buried her face in her hands. How could she fight something so vicious, so calculated? Richard found her like that moments later, sitting in silence amidst the remnants of what should have been a triumphant evening. He knelt beside her, taking her trembling hands in his. "Lila," he said softly, "look at me." She hesitated before meeting his gaze, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "I'm tired, Richard. I'm tired of fighting, of proving myself, of trying to fit into a world that doesn't want me." Richard squeezed her hands, his expression fierce, yet tender. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Not to Miranda, not to the press, not even to me. You've already proven enough, to yourself. And if you think I'm letting you walk away now, after everything we've been through, you're wrong." His words ignited something inside her, a spark of defiance she thought had burned out. Slowly she straightened, wiping her tears away. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice steadier now. Richard smiled, a glimmer of mischief returning to his eyes. "We fight back, together, Their counterattack began with a bold move. Richard called a press conference, inviting journalists, influencers, and even some of Miranda's closest allies. As the room filled with skeptical faces, Richard stood confidently beside Lila, who clutched a tray of freshly prepared yakisoba. Addressing the audience, Richard laid bare the truth, exposing Miranda's lies, presenting evidence Samuel had uncovered, and showcasing the authenticity of Lila's work. Then, without missing a beat, he handed the microphone to Lila. For a moment she froze, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. But then she remembered why she started cooking in the first place. Not for fame, not for money, but because it brought joy to others. With renewed resolve, she spoke passionately about her journey, her grandmother's legacy, and the love she poured into every dish. By the end of the conference, the tide had turned. Support poured in from customers, fans, and even rival chefs who admired Lila's resilience. Miranda, exposed and humiliated, retreated from the spotlight. Her schemes crumbling around her, Sabre Delilah emerged stronger than ever. Its reputation, untarnished. More importantly, Richard and Lila's bond deepened. Forged in the fire of adversity, they realized that their differences weren't obstacles. They were strengths. Where Lila saw simplicity, Richard saw depth. Where Richard saw ambition, Lila saw humanity. Together, they balanced each other perfectly. Months passed, and life settled into a rhythm that was both familiar and new. Sabre Delilah became a beacon of culinary excellence, drawing visitors from across the globe. Yet despite its success, it remained rooted in the values that defined it: community, authenticity, and love. Richard continued to support Lila's dreams, encouraging her to expand the restaurant chain, while ensuring she stayed true to her vision. In return, Lila taught Richard the beauty of slowing down, of savoring life's simple pleasures, instead of chasing endless achievements. Their story culminated in a quiet moment months later, far removed from the glitz and glamour of their earlier battles. Standing in the garden where they'd exchanged vows, Lila watched as Richard helped her grandmother plant new flowers. Laughter echoed around them, mingling with the scent of freshly cooked food wafting from the kitchen. Lila smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace. She had started as a delivery girl with nothing but a dream, and now she stood alongside a man who saw her not for what she lacked, but for all she possessed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues over the village, Richard wrapped an arm around Lila's shoulders. "So," he murmured, "worth it." She leaned into him, closing her eyes. More than worth it. And in that moment, surrounded by love, laughter, and the promise of tomorrow, they knew they had created something truly extraordinary. A life built not on wealth or status, but on trust, respect, and the courage to follow their hearts. If you enjoyed this emotional roller coaster of a story, let us know in the comments below. What did you think of Richard and Lila's journey? Share your thoughts, rate the story on a scale of 0 to 10, and don't forget to subscribe for more captivating tales like this one. Until next time, thank you for watching, and remember, love always finds a way.